Good evening, everybody. Good to see you all. We're just waiting for people to join in, right? We'll start at 5 p.m. sharp. We have 3 minutes to go. So thank you for joining. We'll start at 5. All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Just want to confirm if you're able to see my screen with the picture. Can I get some responses on the chat, please? Okay, Rahul says yes. Shachi also says yes. Okay, thank you. Right. Okay, just a second. Just a second, everyone. We have a few in-person attendees coming in. So I'm going to take a minute or two, right? You can listen. Okay, hi, everyone. Very good evening. And we're going to make a start right now. So today is session 3. We have already discussed chapter 1 of the Bhagavad Gita and got an introduction to the Bhagavad Gita and what it is. And now we're midway through chapter 2, right? So let me go back and do a quick recap, right? And like I always begin the class, before beginning, I request that you all kindly lend me your prayers and your blessings that, whatever I may speak, may be in accordance with what Lord Krishna instructed to Arjuna on the Kurukshetra battlefield, right? And I also seek blessings from the Guru Parampara so that whatever I may say may be in accordance with the scriptures, right? And I'd like to say a small prayer before starting. You all can join me in the prayer. If you know the shlokas, you're most welcome to say it with me, or else you can just listen and pray. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapad Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. All right. So we are going to have a quick recap of what we did in the first chapter, right? I'm going to share my screen. So the Bhagavad Gita, like I have told you before, was spoken by Lord Krishna to Arjuna 5,000 years back on the Kurukshetra battlefield. And Arjuna was a great warrior and he was there to fight the war to rightfully gain the land that they were supposed to get, right? But when he went there to the battlefield, what he saw made him feel completely, overwhelmed with compassion and grief. And what did he see there? He saw his own family and friends on the battlefield against whom he has to fight. And eventually his family and friends and mentors would be, killed after the war. And he felt like, is this even worth it? Should I even fight this battle? Because at the end, what he is going to get is just the kingdom. But without his family, friends, mentors, grandfather figures, father figures, they would all be killed in the war, right? So he ended up with self-doubt. He ended up with, thinking why he was on the battlefield and why he should fight, despite being the greatest warrior of those times, greatest archer of those times, right? So we then began, right, with the second chapter. So first chapter basically deals with Arjuna's doubt, right? So the acronym for the first chapter is doubt. All right. You've all seen this on the screen. So I'm going to stop sharing this. And now we're going to see what we have already seen in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, right? Can somebody tell me in the chat box, what does the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita begin with, right? How does the second chapter begin? A lot of you were there in the previous class. So I think okay. Oh, very nice. You've all got the acronyms right. Indumati, Shivani, and Divya, you all say the acronym for the second chapter is Gita. Right, but what does the second chapter begin with actually? The first chapter ends with Arjuna's doubt, and Arjuna finally decides that he will not fight the war anymore, right? He wouldn't fight the battle anymore, right? But, okay, the second chapter begins with Arjuna's surrender to Krishna. Yes, perfect, Nikki and Pranav, right? Priya also says surrender. Perfect. So we also discussed what surrender actually means. By Arjuna's side, although Arjuna was the great warrior, great archer of that time, and he had been preparing to fight the Kurukshetra battle for the past 50 years, right? But he was so overcome with grief and compassion that he decided he would not fight. But still, although he decided that he would not fight, he did not run away from the battlefield, right? What he did instead, he spoke to Lord Sri Krishna, who was his charioteer, who was alongside him and guiding him, right? But what does surrender actually mean? Arjuna, he had already thought that he would not fight the battle. He could have just walked away from the battlefield. Before doing that, he decided to take the advice of Lord Sri Krishna. So he confesses his fears, he confesses his feelings, right? To Lord Krishna. He says in the 7th shloka of the 2nd chapter, I'm reading the translation for you. Now I'm confused about my duty, and I have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I'm asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me, right? Now I'm your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. Knowing that Krishna is a far more experienced person and somebody who is qualified to guide him, Arjuna decides to take the suggestion or guidance of Lord Sri Krishna. He says, now I'm surrendered to you. What does surrender actually mean? That it's not just that you're asking something to someone. You have now taken shelter of a person who is far more experienced and wise than you. And he is a bona fide teacher. So whatever that person says, you have a complete trust and faith that whatever this person tells me is going to be something that is going to be the best for me, right? So you accept it. When you're ready to take instructions and accept it completely, knowing that the person that you are taking instructions from knows far better than you, and whatever they will do in the best of your interest, right? That is called surrender. So Arjuna surrenders and says that I am accepting you as a bona fide teacher, as a guru, right? And I'm seeking your guidance. Please guide me on how should I proceed with this, right? I'm having self-doubt. I'm feeling confused. I have thousands of questions. I'm overwhelmed with grief and compassion for my family. I don't want to fight against them. I want to leave the battlefield. But still, I want to take your guidance before doing anything further, right? He asks for Lord Krishna's help. So that's how the 2nd chapter begins, right? And the precondition for surrender. What is required for you to surrender like this? Despite being the greatest warrior, if somebody is deemed the greatest warrior, he should have the courage to still seek help when he or she needs it. Whatever other people think of you, whatever your qualification is materially, doesn't really matter. But when you need help, the wisest thing that you can do is go to a person that is qualified to help you, right? And take that help. Whatever people may think of you, that is fine. But when you need help, it is important to seek that, right? So we cannot succeed, by being an orphan. We need to go to people that are wise and take their help. All right. So that is surrender. And the precondition for surrender is courage, right? You basically overcome your own fears of being judged and still go and seek help. All right. So the next concept that we dealt with in the 2nd chapter last week was the identity. What is our real identity? Who are we? Right? We had a nice discussion about who we are. Can I have some quick responses about who we are? Okay, Prashant is the first one to give the response. Last time also he was the first one, enlightened being in the class. Okay. Does anybody have a different answer? I'm getting all correct answers today. Everyone says soul, Atma, soul. Okay. Rahul says soul. Shash. Okay, Shash has an answer. We are all normal human beings. Okay. Yes. We're all normal human beings. And there are people who are superhuman among us as well. Right. Okay. So what does this, we all now saw that our real identity is not our personality, is not our emotions, is not the clothes that we wear, is not this body that we have, right? It's told that vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grihnati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnan anyani samyati navani dehi. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that this body is just like an outfit, is just like a dress, that you wear. But eventually, it gets worn out because you're wearing it for a long time. And there is a time when you have to let go of this outfit to get a different one that serves the purpose, right? What is the purpose of wearing clothes? Can someone tell me? And I expect modest answers. In the chat box, please. We have Deeptanshu here. Can Deeptanshu tell us what he thinks? Why do people wear clothes basically?
I have my own conceptions. I can give you that. My concept of wearing clothes is to make sure that my body is protected.
Right.
Just due to the weather. For example, I'm wearing this jacket or this wool because it's cold
outside. Right.
And also to protect my, if you want to call it shame, then so be it, large.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, in that regard, because I think it's, in a way, we are all ashamed to expose ourselves completely. Similar to how Lord Krishna actually convinced Duryodhan before the final battle day, when he went to Gandhari and she asked him to come completely barefoot so she can use a Divya Drishti to protect his entire body. But Lord Krishna convinced him to wear, I believe, was it a pant? It was just something very short to cover this specific area. So I think Lajja is also something. I'm sorry, I went off on tangent there.
No worries. Thank you. So what Diptanshu told, I hope you all heard it. So he said that you basically want to protect yourselves from the cold, from the weather, right? Basically keep your body covered and protected. Similarly, the body is an outfit, Okay, Nikki says to protect our bodies. Let me read your answer before giving the answer away. Cover your body. Okay, Kartikeya says thand na lage. Okay. So that you don't feel cold in Hindi. Okay, the first purpose was to protect the body, but eventually it became fashion. Okay, and then eventually in that fashion, we forgot that the purpose was to protect the body. Okay, right. Right. Our appearance. Sash has a beautiful answer on the chat. I'd like to read it out to you all. So appearance may change over time, right? But the soul will be the same. So if you go back and, look at your pictures when you were maybe 1 year old or 2 year old, and I have very senior members in the audience. I have Lalita auntie again with me today. So she's 70. So she goes back and looks at her wedding album. She would probably look like an entirely different person, isn't it?
Nobody would recognize her.
Nobody would. Auntie says nobody would recognize her, right? So when we look back at our, childhood pictures, still, if you actually see, there is so much of a change in the body. Your body has changed. Eventually, it's going to change further, right? But there's something that is constant in this whole transition, isn't it? Something, and it's not a thing. It is something that's experiencing these changes, right? So there has to be an intelligence, right? I don't want to use that word. I'm expecting the word to come. What is that word? That remains constant. What is that one property that makes the living and the dead different? What is that one property that enables us to experience things in the body? Yes, okay. Prashant, I think you mean to say consciousness. Yes, Pranav is right here. It's consciousness, right? It's that sense of being, that ability to be aware, that ability to sense those changes, that ability to experience things, right? That we term consciousness is something that makes us different from a body that's dead, something that makes our body different from a body that is no longer considered to be alive, isn't it? Right? It's the consciousness. So our real identity is this consciousness which is experiencing changes, which is taking on different bodies, right? It is taking on different bodies. So this body is like an outfit. You let go of this once it is, old, and once it is not fit to be inhabited anymore. You take up a different body that can serve the purpose of your, existence. So we discussed this last class, so I'm not going to take it a lot further. And it's a concept that cannot be understood at once, right? It will take some time, and it is okay to accept that fact. So it will take some time to understand this. We can give us that time. People take whole lifetimes to realize this, right? So it's not that easy, but it is good to know. And we get to know that in this chapter, the second chapter, if you look at the 13th shloka, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. This is the 13th shloka. And what does it mean? Let me read the translation for you. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change, right? So people who don't know that what happens during death, we're usually very frightened of death, isn't it? It's our very instinct to survive. We all have that survival instinct. We're all scared of death. If there's something that threatens our life, we are very intimidated by it. We're very scared of it and frightened by it. So that is exactly what happens to most of us when we are faced with this thing called death. Whether it is we ourselves undergoing it or, near and dear ones. Especially when it comes to our own experience, most of us, if there is death coming in front of us, we would be frightened of it. But when we know the fact, now that we have learned that death is just a transition from this body to the next, and this goes on and on and on. We keep changing our bodies unless we ultimately realize the purpose of why we are here and why we are being put into these different bodies, right? So this is the thing. Now let us go on to what is this body about? The body is, like I already mentioned, it's like an external outfit, and it's not something that we identify with. The moment the soul leaves the body is just something material, right? It has no value. There was this research study, very interesting research study. So if you want to put a price tag on this body, analyze its chemical composition, and find out how much, what value, what net worth your body would have, someone's clothing and everything, just the body. Someone found that in a research it'll cost, can you give me your guesses before I just reveal this? I don't want to reveal it. I think you people would have nice guesses. Deeptanshu, what do you think? How much will you, if you have to put a price on the human body, how much do you think would it cost? Just the body, okay? Not the consciousness, just the body. Okay. I'm getting very amazing answers in the chat box. Right. Sorry?
How quickly somebody finds a body.
Lalita auntie says how quickly someone finds the body. Right. Yes, because the body is right. Okay, body parts can be used. Right. Organs can be donated. Okay. Okay, that's right. Pranav Pranav says kidney would be sold for 70 lakhs. The heart would be sold for 1 crore and lungs 1,000 smokes. Oh my goodness. Yes. Deeptanshu, what's your guess?
Genuinely no idea.
Genuinely no idea. Okay. Okay. Yeah. That's exactly what Sash told me in the chat box. She says no value, it just rots. So that is true, actually. The body is just going to rot, right? It really does not have a value once the consciousness leaves the body, isn't it? Right? Okay. Someone, Karthikeya says his body would go for 80 to 100 million pounds. Oh God, I don't think that even the Lalita auntie is suggesting that you have gold implants in your teeth. That's why it would go for 100 million pounds. No, no, you're all overestimating it, I think. Sash gave the cutthroat answer. It has no value, it's going to rot. Huh. Okay. Just a handful of ash. Perfect. So if you look at the actual value, if you had to, put a price tag on the human body, they found out that all it would cost would be in Indian rupees, this is not pounds, in Indian rupees, so 240 rupees. That would be the actual price tag if break down all the constituents of the body, proteins, amino acids, and auntie says you would have to spend more to dispose that off rather than buy it. During COVID. Right. Deeptanshu is saying if it was COVID, it's going to cost even more to dispose it off rather than have it, isn't it? So the actual value of the body is nothing without the soul inhabiting it. So our identity is not really in this body. Our identity is the consciousness that resides within the body, which is called the soul, right? And the soul is basically protected and covered by the body. And there are different concepts of what kind of bodies we have, right? It is said that we have gross body, which is visible to us and which we can feel. And there's also subtle body. And the subtle body is basically composed of our mind, false ego, and intelligence, right? We do have the memory. That's why you would have heard of people undergoing past life regressions, undergoing, therapy, hypnotic therapies and stuff like that, and being able to remember things that have happened to them way back, either in this life as a child or even before that in the womb. Some people can experience things that they underwent in the womb. If their mother, went through an accident, the trauma that they felt, they can recollect those things. Sorry? Jatishwar. Okay. I couldn't get. Deeptanshu is trying to say something.
There's a term called Jatishwar, which means the person remembers the certain things which happened in the previous life.
Right, right. So I think in the last session I did mention there was this very famous researcher and professor from the University of Virginia, Ian Stevenson, who published several books on, people having spontaneous memory of their past lives. And he has documented over 200 cases wherein children have recollected their past lives and said that, oh, I used to live there and I had a wife and, I had these children and I don't know how they are. I'm worried for them, stuff like that. And so these are people, when they walk somewhere, you feel that I have been here, before. Yeah. So I think Sash told us in the chat that we are just normal people before. So even as normal people, there are times where we have these deja vu moments, right? That we feel like it would be some place that we've never been to before, but we still feel a sense of belonging or just a sense of being there before. So we do have memory, and there are mechanisms by which this memory gets, gets shut down for a very short period of time when you are born into a different body. And these mechanisms are explained in the Shastras, in the Indian scriptures, right? So anyway, the body is, very majorly divided into two components, let's say, gross body and subtle body. Gross body is everything that you can feel. It's completely material. It's composed of earth, water, air, fire, and ether. And the price tag that I was mentioning was for this gross body, right? It's just rupees 240. That is because it was done by modern day researchers. If they were really wise and intelligent people, what would they say? The actual value of the gross body is rupees in pounds. How many pence, rupees, or pounds? What's the actual value? It's absolutely nothing. It's just going to rot, right? It's zero. It's 0 pounds, pence, cents, whatever. It's going to rot. So there's no real value. But the subtle body is composed of memory, false ego, mind, the mind, false ego, and intelligence. These are more complex things, difficult to construct. If you had to create this, we're still in the process of creating artificial intelligence, and we are having all these chat GPT and stuff like that these days. We're still in the process. But these things are more difficult and complex, so we are still not in a position to put a price tag to them. And then we have the soul residing within this body. Now let's see some of the characteristics of this soul. In the second chapter, we have a large description, okay, of what the soul is and what are its characteristics. The soul does not have anything like birth and death, right? The soul is never born. It's said to be unborn. That's described in the 21st shloka of the second chapter. The soul is also indestructible. There's nothing like death, accident, trauma that can happen to the soul, right? The soul is indestructible, does not face birth or death. And if somebody sets out to measure the soul in its dimensions and how it tries to visualize it and see it, with the senses that we have been equipped with, we cannot perceive the soul, neither can we measure it. Just imagine you're trying to measure a cell with your naked eye. People who have studied biology might understand. Is it possible to measure a cell of the human body with your naked eye without using any other, instruments like a microscope or a device? Is that possible? It is not, isn't it? You will need help. You will need some other equipment that's more sophisticated to be able to look at something like a human cell, isn't it? Because it measures 7 to 12 microns, and it's impossible to look at it with your normal vision. Right. Yes, Pranav says you can't hear something that is less than 2000 hertz in frequency. So your senses have a particular range of functionality or capabilities beyond which you cannot stretch it. So anything that is beyond this range, we cannot experience with our limited senses. And it's important to acknowledge this, isn't it? So, right. Can mental disorders damage the soul? Okay, Sash has a beautiful question. Right. So what do you think? I think I just mentioned that mental disorders are related to the body or the soul. Can someone comment on this in the chat box? What do you think, Lalita Aunty? Mental disorders? They're from the body. Lalita Aunty says they're related to the body.
Has nothing to do.
Right. Lalita Aunty says it's related to the mind and the body. It has nothing to do with the soul. Pranav says it's still the body. Does anybody have different answers to this? Still the body.
I was reading something about like Vedic astrology a few days ago, and
okay,
it said that there are three basic parts: the soul, the body, and the emotions in the mind. So I think the mental disability is the disorder which one is talking about, be it depression, pain, anguish, anything which comes through to the mind. It's basically a reflection of the emotion, which is basically the brain. The soul is not the brain. Soul is different.
Right. So I think we conclude from this discussion that mental disorders and things that we experience in the body, physical disorders, trauma, disease, disability, anything that we know of in our experience is not related to the soul, isn't it? Anything of this sort. The actual consciousness that is able to experience these changes is the soul, but the soul itself remains unaffected by what is happening in the body or the mind. Okay, this might be a little difficult to understand, but that's how it is. So mental disorders do not affect the soul, neither do physical disorders.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Lalita auntie has a question.
Now, okay, we discussed that soul has nothing to do with it. But at the same time, the karma is attached to the soul.
Right.
So when the soul comes into it, so mental disorder is also part of the karma.
So karma is attached. This is a concept that we will deal with. Karma is not attached with the soul.
No, attached in the sense when the soul comes in, but it also carries a...
So that's why we call it subtle body. Yeah. Something that we cannot perceive, but it still accompanies the soul as a covering. So the memory, intelligence, and the false ego, which carry these experiences of mental disorders, are accompanying the soul until a point that the soul becomes aware of itself so much so that it can let go of that subtle covering as well. So the soul itself does not have this attribute of a mental disorder or a memory. It carries it along until a certain point where it can let go of it and be free. Soul is pure consciousness. It is invisible and it's inconceivable, and it pervades the entire universe. And similarly, the presence of the soul maintains the material body. In conclusion, what do we conclude from this chapter? The soul is eternal and it's indestructible. Material nature is temporary, right? So we should not be scared or bewildered by the inevitable destruction of the material body, right? We should not be scared of death. It's not something to be scared of. It's a transition. When you get a new dress for the new year, would you be happy or would you be fearful and scared? Huh? We would be happy to get a new dress, isn't it? Correct. So I'm not saying that you should be happy about death, but death is a normal process and it is important to accept this fact. I am not promoting pro-death stuff here. Please know that. We will read further in the Bhagavad Gita that I'm sure people would have had experiences where they feel very bad about themselves, feel suicidal. But we'll see what Lord Krishna says further in the Bhagavad Gita about suicide, whether somebody should do it or not. It's a very interesting thing. So we will see that. The meeting is now going to end in less than a minute. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then we're going to come back to this concept. All right. I want all of you to join back and we're going to have our pub quiz after that. Right. Whoever answers first is going to be glorified. And at the end of the 18 days, the person who consistently answers will get a surprise gift. Okay. Right. So we're going to stop here and I request you all to join back.